So, hi, Emma. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's really great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. Well, let's get started. So, Ecotone is a portfolio of natural and organic store cupboard favourites, including Kallo, Whole Earth, and my personal favourites, Teas and Mrs Crimbles. I am gluten-free, so I love a Mrs Crimbles. And actually, back in the day, Mrs Crimbles was one of the rare gluten-free biscuits or macaroons that you could get hold of. It was one of the first, so it always has a very, very special place in my heart. So my guilty pleasure is actually dipping a Mrs Crimbles chocolate macaroon straight into my mug of Clipper everyday tea. Excellent. But let's not go there. That is my little guilty pleasure. So tell us more about Ecotone. You guys have recently changed your name, actually, haven't you? Because I think you used to be Vassanen.
That's right.
So tell us more about Ecotone and how your values as a B Corp certified business help to sort of shape the choice and the range of those brands within your portfolio.
Yeah, so Ecotone UK is part of a wider group. So Ecotone Group, we have offices and production facilities across 7 countries in Europe, but you can buy our products in more than 90 countries. So we're part of a larger group, and we're actually the largest organic supplier across Europe. And as you mentioned, we've recently relaunched as Ecotone, and that really is to help us promote the mission that we're on, which is to really support biodiversity through all of the actions that we take and all of the brands that we have across all these markets. So part of a group that really shares a mission around our passion for sustaining biodiversity and making the right choices in everything we do. So Ecotone in the UK, we have our offices here in Camberley, and we also have our lovely Clipper tea factory down in Bedminster in Dorset. And we've in the UK, we've been B Corp since 2018. Actually, Ecotone was the first multinational to gain, and I think still the only multinational to gain B Corp accreditation across the full group. We gained it in 2018, and are really proud to be part of the B Corp community. I think they're a fantastic organisation, really bringing like-minded organisations together, and really trying to be this force for good. And actually, for us, B Corp's quite special because it really does sort of validates the DNA of our business. So we didn't actually have to do lots of new things in order to validate as a B Corp, because I think rather than, we're not retrofitting a lot of the things that we do, being, we've always been about people and planet and looking after both and having that balance. So B Corp is a validation of a lot of the stuff that we've been doing over the last 30 years. But what it does do then is gives us the badge to be able to communicate a lot more about the importance of making those right choices. So that's us. 2 sites in the UK. We have, as you say, a fantastic portfolio. All of our brands are really anchored in health and sustainability, and we're really proud of that. We're really proud of the portfolio and what it stands for and how it's able to engage consumers in making those right choices and protecting the planet.
So we'd love to hear a little bit more about the brands, actually. But just before we move on to the actual brands within the portfolio, you talked about validation of the DNA that already very much sort of ran through the business and the company. How does being a B Corp affect the way that you do business from a supply chain point of view, your views on single-use packaging? You've talked about the fact that it's very much sort of founded in the way that you look after your staff and your employees. But it does run all the way through, doesn't it? From supply chain, packaging, staff, and then onto your partners and retailers, and I guess finally your customers.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, B Corp didn't necessarily fundamentally change the way that we did things, but it did give us really clear criteria to be assessed on, to know what the right things are, and gives us a community where we can share best practice and make sure we're continually improving. But say our DNA has always been about, we're really passionate first and foremost about the people that we have here, and really lucky and privileged in terms of the employees that we have here. We have very talented, very passionate employees. I do think that by being so anchored in health and sustainability, we attract real like-minded people that really have a passion around doing the right thing. And B Corp really encourages that you look after, put people first. And it's not just our employees. So signing up to B Corp, they look at a lot of the initiatives you have for people. And we have a lot of initiatives here around looking after the health and well-being of our employees, making sure that it's not just about work, that we're also looking after their work-life balance, having flexible working hours, listening to feedback around what people need to balance their personal life with their business life. So we have lots of programs that we support our employees with, and very pleased that we are actually being accredited as a great place to work as well. So that sort of again is another validation that we're doing the right things for people. But it's not just about with B Corp, you're not just assessed on how you look after your own employees. It's also around, for us, it's really important to also look after the people in terms of communities of where we source from. So again, it's in our DNA. We're pretty much one of the with the Clipper brand, we helped start the Fair Trade Foundation to ensure that when we are purchasing our tea, that we are looking after the communities of where we're purchasing it, and that they have money that goes directly to them to make sure that their children can go to school, that they have adequate healthcare and sanitation. So putting people first is a core criteria for B Corp. As well as then looking after the planet. So making sure that the choices that you make across your business also have positive impacts or reduce the negative impact it can have on the planet. So we really champion organic products. Over 90% of our portfolio is vegetarian. Our factory in Bedminster is carbon neutral. So as I say, we've always wanted to do the right thing. We're so passionate about biodiversity and the impact that we have as a food producer on the environment. We always have a lot of activities in place to continually try and improve what we're doing. And the people here are always coming up with new ideas of what we should be doing, and we have lots of debates around it. But that really helps us just fit very well into the B Corp community, because it is not just about profit, it's about balancing the choices that you have and looking after your people, employees, the communities they work in, as well as the planet.
I know you've mentioned biodiversity a couple of times since we started talking. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those initiatives?
Yeah, sure. So, biodiversity, our name Ecotone is actually an ecotone is a very special place in the world where very rich biodiverse come together and create a very special place, which is called an ecotone. So one of the leading thing that we do to protect biodiversity is to really promote organic, because stopping the use of pesticides really does help the richness of the soil and the microorganisms, etc., grow and get much richer soil for future growth. And that's probably the key. The number one priority we have is really trying to promote organic, but there's lots more that we do in terms of biodiversity. We really use 7 main crops, which means that we don't have then the diverse agriculture that would really help the soil and regeneration. So trying to think about other crops that we can use in order to promote that biodiversity. It's a complex area, actually, biodiversity, and there's lots of actions that we can take. But we just always try and consider the impact we're having and the choices that we have, and think about, are there options that we have to improve that biodiversity of the planet?
Yeah, are these the best choices?
Exactly, yeah.
I think that kind of that level of awareness, I just think, is so important, and then acting on it and just trying to be the best that you can possibly be, because no one and no business is 100% perfect. But if you're just striving for perfection and striving to do good, then That is
And you know what,
a
that is a
good
massive point, because I think there is a fear in businesses that we have to be perfect. But I think
Mhm.
actually, particularly the younger generation, who are very passionate about doing the right thing, and they're very passionate about, work-life balance and personal health as well as planet health. I think there is a growing acceptance that actually striving to do the right thing is also the right choice. And there are there's a number of challenges that we have when we try and make those right choices, because there can often be a debate around what is the right thing to do, and often, unfortunately, it's not a black and white answer, and you have
Yeah.
to always balance, and you could argue either way sometimes on the
Mhm.
choices. But what I think is really important is that we have that debate, and that we bring it into the consciousness of businesses and people, and that we accept, it's not always going to be perfect, but as long as we all take action and choices that we believe are, going in the right way, and the educated choices that we're taking, will make a big difference, and it'll get there. But it won't be perfect. There isn't perfection.
Yeah, I think that is such a good point, and that's a really lovely quote, Emma. Striving to do the right thing is the right thing to do, because we're
Yes.
just, if we can just be focused on moving in the right direction, then good is going to come of that. So just back to the portfolio. Does your B Corp status preclude certain brands from sort of joining the Ecotone UK family? Do brands have to fit a certain mold for you guys, or is there a little bit of flex? You talked about organic. Sorry, I'm now firing a million questions all wrapped up in one, Emma. You mentioned organic, and I wanted to know if all Ecotone UK products are organic. And then the next question is, would you sort of accept or consider most brands that come to you, or are you pretty set on them fitting a certain set of criteria?
Yeah, so I guess so in answer to the first question, not all of our products in the UK portfolio are organic.
Mm-hmm.
But all of them are anchored in a form of either, personal health or sustainable health. So
Mm-hmm.
we are very proud of the fact that our brands do have a core benefit that we passionately believe in, and we believe we're doing good by, promoting and selling our brands. So I think we do have high standards and high expectations of the brands, and we would be very selective when looking at a brand to join our portfolio. But we don't have a set class of rules in terms of what that
Mm-hmm.
looks like. But we would want brands that come in that really strengthen the portfolio. And it's often not just about the brand when you're looking at acquisitions. It's also, about the culture and the overall strategy. And I think often if the cultures aren't aligned and there's not strategic alignment, then that will bring challenges to bring, a brand into a portfolio. So we would look at the brand and what it offers, and none of our brands are just retrofitting health or sustainability because it's a new fad. It's been
Yeah.
the core of those brands from the moment they were thought of. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Clipper again is a good example, where a husband and wife in their kitchen in Dorset, passionate about tea, but very, very concerned about the sourcing of the tea and the impact it was having on the people. So they then created the Clipper brand, and it was the first fair trade tea brand. And now fair trade tea is much more common. So there's a real pride in the heritage of our brands, and anyone that joins us, you'd like to have that heritage pride that we can then build on and amplify more through the strength that we have within the portfolio.
That makes good sense. Just you talking is just making me sort of think about consumer and consumer choices. So just thinking about your customer profile, which I'm sure sort of varies slightly from brand to brand. From a consumer point of view, we're often in this really difficult position whereby we need to make a choice between the paying a slight premium for the ethical and sustainable choice versus price. And I just wondered, I know that I think that during my research, I found that you have done quite Ecotone UK and previously Vasana, and have done quite a lot of research in this area. What what is it coming down to? I mean, how often are consumers happy to pay that premium to help the planet? And then especially sort of within the context of COVID and household incomes being hit really, really hard by the pandemic, we all have sort of, a little bit less disposable cash, but at the same time, COVID and lockdown has forced us to sort of sit back and actually really kind of reflect on the importance of looking after our planet. There's so much going on, isn't there? Sort of within that scenario, there's this price premium situation, but we're all, very, very much more aware of the planet and our need to make that sustainable, ethical brand purchase.
Yeah, and it's a very difficult balance that we always are very, very aware of. It's sometimes difficult to get away from the fact that, if you're going to pay a fair trade premium directly to the people you're sourcing from, there is a cost to that that cannot get fully taken out. So there are times where there is an additional cost that we believe is the right choice within that supply chain. But actually, we've actually just done some independent research that we're sort of analysing the results from, so haven't got the full results, but so already some really interesting findings coming out. And one of the things that comes across really clearly is that that younger people are very passionate about, they want to purchase sustainable choices all the time, and actually more so in younger people than the older generation. So I think it's going to continue growing, that people will make conscious choices and they see the value of the sustainable choices. And that's where we have to always be very focused on, how do we provide value through our brands? And actually, over the past year, and it perhaps is due to COVID making people more aware of health of individuals and health of the planet. We've seen the impact of lockdown and what it's had, in terms of some of the emissions, etc. So people are very aware, and our research actually shows that one of the biggest increases in purchase considerations is actually in choosing sustainable, and secondary to that is choosing ethical. And actually, price and quality have gone down in those considerations. So it's certainly been highlighted over the pandemic. And even just people just feeling closer to nature and appreciating, those walks that we had, that 1 hour walk at the beginning was, that was the lifeline for so many of us. There was a real appreciation of the beauty of nature and how we need to protect it. So there is a value that is appreciated more and more, both through younger people, but also through the pandemic, I think, just accelerating that. And I think the more that we all join together in a movement to protect biodiversity and make the right choices, the easier it will become for us to give that value. It's a little bit like, was it a fad when it was all about the Body Shop and testing on animals? But actually now that's become almost like a fundamental requirement of a number of brands, that you just don't test on animals anymore. So it's an amazing
it's like a
movement.
hygiene factor, isn't
it? Exactly. And that's where, yes, maybe it was a fad. It's not spoken about as much now, but because it's become a hygiene factor, and the expectation is, we don't want cosmetics that have been tested brutally on animals, and that's just not acceptable. And I think if we all join together in this movement and, continue promoting the importance of the choices and actions that we take, it will become a hygiene factor in our food. And we really underestimate. It's interesting as well in the research that people really do underestimate the impact that the food choices have on the environment. It really does. We do have a responsibility to make the right choices on our, through our food, because that will have an impact on the planet.
Yeah.
So I really hope that I think we've had a bit of a boost through the pandemic. We definitely have a younger generation coming through who will hold manufacturers to account and will make sure that behaviour change comes through. which I think will be great for our planet.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Emma, hearing you talk about the fads, and we always kind of think of a fad as being just something so temporary, and I've never thought of the fact that actually a fad can turn into a movement and can turn into the norm, the hygiene factor, the expected standard, which is a really interesting thing in itself. We could probably do a whole podcast talking about that and the whole psychology of it as well. You've talked about younger people being willing to, sort of make that investment, pay a little bit more to ensure that they're buying into fair trade, sustainable, ethical. But how are would you say that these are messages that the individual brands are working hard to get across, or is it a sort of collective portfolio initiative from your side?
Well, it's a bit of both in different ways. So I think, again, B Corp helps from a business perspective. There's an awareness now, whether it's through investors or retailers and other businesses, of the importance of doing business in the right way and in a new way, and not just all about profits, that force for good. So that really impacts the interactions you can have business to business, which is very important, because it's very important that we get the support from the retailers, because the retailers themselves are under pressure. There's an expectation from consumers that retailers take responsibility for the impacts they have, and that retailers also help educate shoppers on what the right thing is to do and help them make those right choices. So I think, and again, that's why Ecotone, we're on this mission to support biodiversity. So I think there's lots we can do at a business level to help the right investments and business make the right choices. But then from a consumer, I think, yes, the brands are the ones, it's the brands that consumers relate to, and that's where they have that connectivity. And the brands are able to do it in a way that relates to people, and they're also able to pick up a key issue or element and really champion it. So a good example is Whole Earth, where Whole Earth have partnered with the Sumatran Orangutan Society. And it's a really lovely partnership because it works from a brand perspective, because people can visualize the orangutans and the need to support the environments for the orangutans. But we're also then planting trees in the forever forest, so we're also regenerating and helping the biodiversity of the area, as well as supporting the current area the orangutans are with. And I think those sort of emotive campaigns or partnerships help highlight again to the consumers that they're making a correct choice and give them that reassurance. So the combined impact of a number of brands championing different actions or opportunities has a big impact, and then the overall businesses getting together and saying what is the right thing to do and helping share best practice will also then help further that in terms of the business choices that we make.
So it's almost everyone who is sort of involved in the process, kind of banging the drum, isn't it?
Absolutely,
from the brands to the retailers and elements of the supply chain as well. Yes, super interesting. Just talking about the retailers and your retail partners. Obviously, COVID has had quite an impact on the way that we shop for our groceries, and home delivery has sort of gone up, and perhaps actually the weekly trip for the big shop to Tesco or Sainsbury's has taken a little bit of a nosedive over the last year. How will we shop for our groceries in the future, and what do the ethical and sustainable brands of today need to sort of consider in order to future-proof themselves?
Definitely, online has had a supercharged boost over COVID, and I think myself definitely get in the habit of doing online. It becomes so much easier. That I think that is definitely one major shift that we are going to have, and even that is quite interesting because the way that you shop online can be quite different. There's a lot more opportunities for people to research brands and products online and then move to purchase. You look at the reviews of people, that they've posted, you get to have much more, if you want to choose sustainably, there's much more opportunity when you're shopping online to look out for the organic or the the Rainforest Alliance or the SOS signatures that are on there. So that will help, certainly, a different way of communicating and educating through online. But there's still, supermarkets are still going to be the main destination, I think, for a long time. And I think what the brands need to do to future-proof themselves from a sustainable point of view is, to the point earlier, just make the right decisions like from today, because as this younger consumers come through and as the demand for sustainable becomes more inherent and more of a hygiene factor, you have to act now. I mean, if you want to move to an organic sourcing strategy, you can't just pick up an organic tree tomorrow. It takes years to cultivate the land and then to grow the crops and then to be able to produce it. It takes years to cultivate the relationships with those farmers and encourage them to use best practice agriculture and stop using the pesticides and move to more diverse farming initiatives. So brands aren't going to be able to just wake up tomorrow and suddenly be making the right choices. You really have to put the work in now. But all of the movement and all of the shopping behaviours, I mean, organic is growing at twice the rate of conventional, etc. So everything shows you that this is the direction that it's not going to stop, and the demands are going to keep being there. So brands and companies need to consider that now, make the right choices now, in order to fulfil the needs of consumers in years to come.
Yeah, indeed. So Emma, talking about obviously organic and biodiversity and the fact that you can't it's not just an overnight change, and it's not just like a kind of flicking the switch or turning the tap on. In your view, what are some of the other key issues within the grocery and FMCG industry?
I think the biggest challenge for the grocery issue is that, as we mentioned earlier, it's such a complex issue. Climate change, biodiversity, the impact that we're having on people and planet is complex, and there are a number of areas where there isn't a black and white choice that you have, and there isn't just one action that we can take that will solve everything. And I think that's the biggest challenge, because we are struggling to get that singular war cry that consumers and shoppers can say, I get that, and that's what's going to change my behavior. And when I do this, I know that I'm making everything right. There isn't this perfection and this ability to just turn it on and do the right thing. We see that the plastic is a great example. We've all seen the plastic rivers, and the disgrace of the plastic rivers flowing through these villages and impacting people. We've all watched David Attenborough and seen the impact that plastic has in the oceans. So by not using a single-use plastic bag, or Clipper being the first plastic-free tree bag, we gave consumers the choice and the option to do buying Clipper, and you know that you are reducing that plastic mounting and it is the right thing to do. But that isn't the only issue that we've got. There are a number of other impacts that we are having, and there can be debates around the right way to approach them. And I think, that making complex simple and really being able to connect all the dots to make sure that we're continually making the right choices together is hard. I mean, even debates on what is the right packaging. There's and retailers try and write lists to say this is going to be a red list, and you're not going to be listed if you use this type of packaging. But there can be debates on some of their interpretation of what is the best or the worst packaging. So lots of people trying to do the right thing, but getting us all to agree and be able to get this simple message and war cry that consumers and shoppers can get behind to really drive a cohesive behaviour change is quite a challenge.
I think consumers have probably, thankfully, no idea about the levels of complexity that there are that go on behind the scenes. We sort of walk into Sainsbury's, Waitrose, wherever, and kind of grab our pack of Kallo corn cakes or Clipper tea or our tub of whole earth peanut butter, you have no idea about the kind of conversations with regards to sustainable packaging and single-use plastics that are going on behind the scenes. And it sounds like a lot of those conversations are extremely complex, and there's a lot of kind of grey areas in terms of the I guess the grocery, the retailers are obviously trying to do the right thing, and they've got pressure from their customers, and then they're sort of passing that pressure on to you, but not quite sure as to exactly what the solution is. It sounds very complex.
Yeah, it's luckily for us, because of there's recognition that we are always, we're generally seen as experts in this area, though we don't see the pressure coming from them, but we see an open door to be able to work with them and work through the challenges together to do the right thing.
Great. So they will almost be looking to you for guidance.
Yeah.
It sounds like a partnership. Brilliant. Moving on from grocery and retail, I'd love to just talk to you about brand and about the brands within the portfolio from a marketing point of view. So in my my day job, when I'm not interviewing fabulous leaders like yourself, I work for creative brand agency Beyond. So I know how important brand image and brand story is when it comes to consumer purchase. Many of your brands, and I'm thinking specifically, so Mrs Crimbles and Clipper and Whole Earth, those brands have a very playful, really kind of warm, lovely vibe to them. How do you balance the serious, sustainable story with that playful as a sort of brand character for those particular brands? And how do you ensure that those brand stories don't just simply kind of come across as greenwashing?
And again, it's a balance. I'm pleased to hear you say that you sort of see the personality that comes out in our brands, because that is really, really important to for anybody to listen to. You have to engage them first off, and if we were totally serious and just having negative messages around, if you don't do the right thing, then this is what's going to happen, that's not going to be engaging. So we try and balance the personalities that we have with the brand with the messages that we have. And I think our consumers and shoppers again recognize that the messages, the positive messages that we're bringing, whether it's that we're plastic free, we're biodegradable, or the whole earth jars, glass jars, or our partnerships with SOS, etc. All those messages we're giving, the consumers and shoppers know that has been the core part of the brand, has been about doing the right thing. So there's a credibility in that. It's not that we've had a brand and then we've started putting a bit of a nice message around sustainability or tried to do something right. It's so so core to the brands that helps us have a credibility when we're talking of it. And we do have serious conversations in the business. I mean, for each of our brands, last year we had a tiny bit of plastic on the whole earth jar, and we spent hours trying to work out how do we get this last bit of plastic off of the jar and move it to paper. It was a massive thing in our business, whereas other people think, well, it's only a little tiny bit, it doesn't really matter, but it did to us, because that was another improvement that we could make. And I think that credibility is what enables us to have the messages with the brand relatability. And we've always got new things we're doing, whether it's renewable energy at Clipper, using recyclable packaging, partnering with the Sumatran Orangutan Society, sponsoring Team GB, which is a great opportunity. We're sponsoring Team GB at the Olympics with Whole Earth, which will be, we're with them the whole way, and that's a great way where we can get our brand out to a number of people in a nice, engaging way to help support our athletes in a healthy way, with a healthy fuel for them going to the Olympics.
That's brilliant. So how will you be activating that sponsorship? Will it be about sort of ensuring that there is product on site?
We've got lots of activations.
It's probably all under wraps, isn't it?
No, well, some of it's already out there. You'll see, Sainsbury's already, and we've got a limited edition gold jar that's already out in Sainsbury's and selling really well at the moment. So that's sort of activating. Our jars have changed. We've got the Team GB, the flag on our jars at the moment. You can get your own. You can write in and get your own personalised jar. So if you want to support it through the Olympics and have your personalised jar with we've got other bits that are a little bit under wraps currently, but some really you'll see lots of whole earth supporting the Olympians going the whole way on the road to Tokyo. Even if we can't go there ourselves, I think people are really actually going to get behind the Olympics this year. It's a real feel-good factor, something we can all. We need something positive to get behind after the past year. So I think it'll be quite a big event in the UK.
I totally agree. I just think after such a tough sort of 12, 13 months, we just really need these things to look forward to, and these big events, even if there are stadiums that aren't sort of obviously packed with supporters, people cheering on. We'll be tuning in from home. Oh, well done to Whole Earth though, and all of that work that you're doing. That sounds really, really fun. Emma, it's been so interesting talking to you and learning more about the brands within the Ecotone UK portfolio and Ecotone itself, and all of that really great work that you're doing. I've just got one final question for you, a question that I really love to ask my guests, and I've started asking recently. Who do you suggest that I invite onto the show next?
Well, I was thinking about this, and obviously the really obvious ones would be the great coup for you to get would be like the David Attenboroughs, etc. Talk about these sorts of things.
Aim high.
Yeah.
Why not?
But actually, someone who has been very involved in our business, Craig Sams, who was the original founder of the Whole Earth brand, and somebody who I'm sure knows more in his little finger about organic and sustainable choices than anybody else. He was the creator of Whole Earth. He also did Green and Black's fair trade chocolate. So he's real fantastic entrepreneur, where his passion for doing the right thing has created some really inspirational, amazing brands like Whole Earth and Green and Blacks. So I think he'd be a very interesting guy to get on.
Thanks for that, Emma. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you again for your time today. And we wish you and the Ecotone UK team all the very best and the brightest of futures.
Thank you very much. Thank you.